All right, I think we are live here. Hold on, I'm gonna turn this on. Bear with us, guys. Frosi there?
Yep, I am here.
Great. Everybody hear us okay out there? All right, cool. Looks like they can. I'm gonna flip screens here. I know there's a lot of questions to get to today.
Yeah, there's a couple.
Quite a few. So I think before we jump in and kind of there's a fair amount to cover, so I'm going to give it as much time as I can today. I think we've got a couple hours blocked out here. I want to get to some questions from folks that came in. Do you want to describe a little bit about the process of the open letter? I know so. A couple things, right? We're gonna go through the open letter. We're gonna talk about the state of the game. We'll take some questions. Thank you, guys. I just came back from vacation, so if I look more healthy, that's why. That was one of the delays for the AMA here, so I appreciate everybody being patient. But Frosi, do you want to talk about kind of the genesis and how we got here?
I mean, it kind of started with a lot of I talk a lot of with people in the community, and it kind of just started as a general feeling that people aren't exactly happy with where the game is going, the current state of the game, and the attention the live game is receiving.
Yeah.
So I kind of went around and checked out if people wanted to do this sort of thing, and eventually it grew a little bigger than I expected, and I had to do a couple things to keep it all organized. But essentially, I think it took me 2 or 3 weeks of just gathering folks and gathering their opinions, and then I ended up with the open letter that I'm hoping represents most of them, if not all. That obviously was then sent to you, and
Yeah.
here we are.
Yeah. Yeah. You were very kind about reaching out, and I think not. There were a number of ways I think you could have handled it, and you were, like I said, you were pretty kind about it and approaching me and saying, "Hey, we've got this open letter. We don't want it to be sort of this angry mess or sort of caustic thing." And we had a pretty good chat about it. I think it took a little longer to get it on the forum. So for those that have not seen the open letter, we posted it to the forum. So there's a sticky in the social district of the forum, and then there's links into all the various topics there. And so and I get that. I think looking at the chat here, I think there were some players that contributed. There were some players that didn't. I don't disagree with very much in here. I think that it's way past time to have done one of these, and there's reasons for that. We can get into that during the stream here, but anyway, cool. Well, I think hopefully at a minimum, whether people agree with every point in the open letter or not, I think it did sort of open up the dialogue and get us here today, and we'll try to take some questions, and hopefully the mods can help me out and grab some of the questions that we want to get to at the end. I'll try to leave a little time there if we can do that, and so they're paying attention there. So where do you want to jump in here? Do you want to jump in with communication, or where do you want to start?
I would just work down the list if that's fine.
Sure. So I'm not. I'm on my own today here, so I'm running OBS. I'm not an OBS master. Bear with me. I think I only have Frosi. Unfortunately, I think I only have you on the on this particular scene. So I'm going to flip really quickly.
There's no worries.
To the open letter scene, just for folks that haven't seen it. We're going to hope this works. Let's see here. There we go. I put this up on the 5th, right after I got back from vacation, and it's pretty lengthy. What I tried to do was kind of put it in a format that I felt people could uh, digest. And so, one of the other things we're going to lead off with this topic, I think, is communication. It's a big one. I did like this. I know, Frosty, you took the time to run kind of a survey, um, and kind of put the percentages of people, and so I'm going to try to go in order of the survey. I think that hopefully we'll hit. Uh, yeah, fair. We'll hide that. Um, so I'll flip back to us here, and but for those that want to see that, you guys can go to the forums there. So we'll talk about communication first. I think that's one that came up. I know when I took APB over, it was a big undertaking for us. We had not done a whole lot in the online space, and so um, the communication was something that I promised people that we would do, right, and be out there. And I think we did a reasonably good job of that for the first couple of years. I think that the pandemic years have been a little trickier, not necessarily because of the pandemic itself, but just in 2021, I think specifically, and just right after we kind of pulled out of the 2.2 upgrade, right? So we did, I think in
Yeah.
2020 we were doing a ton of open beta. We were doing a bunch of benchmarking. We were knee deep in trying to get game performance on the upgrade ready there. And then, pretty much after we just pulled out, that wasn't going to work. Um, we had to kind of take a bit of a different take with Little Orbit in general. We took on some contract work and kind of it was a step back. Let's rebuild a little bit and figure out what we want to do with APB. So I'll say up front, I don't ever want to overhype or you know tell people stories, right? I kind of want to be just straightforward about where the game's at, where we're at with it, kind of what we're trying to do with it. And the APB upgrade has been just a nightmare. I think we bought into, and I think some of that started with Riot, right? We sort of bought into this mode that was half done, that we kind of took over and finished, and didn't work very well. And we bought into some of the code that was done for console and thought that was going to work well, and it didn't. And so kind of what happened with communication in really as we started to get, I think, midway through 2021 is just I've been busy. The simple answer is I've just been swamped. We've got a number of let's say um, advisory projects. I don't even want to say we're developing, but we are helping another game get launched, where we did a bunch of artwork. Actually, our team led art direction on that game, and then we have another work for hire project that we've been helping out, which we have not announced. That's massive. It's we've got about 55 people in the company right now, and it's kind of sucking the oxygen out of the room. I'm not gonna go into, and we've got a third project that is close to launch that is ours. I'm not gonna spend this stream shilling SDFU or talking about it, but um, we've had our hands full. So I think the biggest answer to the communication problem is just it's me. It's just not I haven't had the availability, and that's kind of part one. I think just trying to do too much at once and keep the studio going, and it's a lot of people to manage and a lot of projects to manage. I think the other factor has been there just hasn't been a lot to talk about. Going back to just I want to give it to the players straight. I don't want to overhype. So certainly I think a couple players mentioned the updates had tapered off, right? So getting back onto an update schedule of every 2 weeks on the engine upgrade was helpful. Certainly, just for me to carve out that time and start dedicating a little bit of brain space to okay, let's get back in the mode of communicating to players. It's interesting because I'm seeing the chat here, and again, like there were moments where I certainly have. We're not closing APB. That's not the announcement you're going to get today. But but there have been moments where I thought we should just shut it down. We should just keep working on it in the background maybe, or keep trying to figure out what to do with it. But it is such a massive game. my fear was that if we took it down, we wouldn't get it back online, and that there's just so much um, momentum you need to kind of get that going again. And so, I don't, I'm sure people are aware, the game was very, very expensive to make. It, they had a lot more people than we do now making it. And so getting in under the hood was, we've gone from kind of the 2.1 to 2.2 and then back to, 1.30. So this is like our third attempt to get this thing, on the rails, right? And so anyway, that's I'm digressing a little bit, but I think those two issues. One, the studio's been incredibly busy with competing stuff, and I don't want to say that and have everybody in the channel go, hey, why aren't you focusing on APB? I think we have put, in all honesty, we put millions into APB at various times in trying to get to a place with it. I think we needed to take a step back, recoup, kind of figure out where the company was at, get some other ships in the water in terms of project wise, and then come back to APB. And then, I hope that I hope that people see the effort. I hope, certainly our track record with APB has not been great in the long term, but we certainly keep trying, right? And we're going to keep trying. So I don't know if I answered that question, but there's the communication one. We're going to do better. Like I said, I've gotten on a pretty good 2-week cadence with the update, and I think people, hopefully, they've been short, right? They're up until maybe recently there hasn't been a whole lot to talk about. So but I did communicate good, bad, or ugly, I promised good, bad, or ugly that I would communicate. So that's what I'm going to work on and do more of.
Yeah, I think in general, like people are happy to see that something's being done with the game, even if it's good, bad, or ugly. Like obviously people wouldn't be here today if they didn't care.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
think I think in general there's a lot of players that aren't necessarily playing the game a lot anymore, if at all, but are still like keeping updated with the game and hoping that something is going to happen. So I'm sure like the fact that you guys are still trying is very much appreciated.
sure. And like I think it's just important for us to finish what we started. I think I may be a masochist in that respect, but we've got a couple projects that are long-term projects, and this is one of them. We took it over in 2018. Like I just want to finish what we started, and so we're going to keep cracking away at it. I think it's a good segue to talk about the 64-bit upgrade, kind of where we are today. I know some of that came up, and kind of why, right? So we, I think in the beginning we were super naive a little bit, right? We ramped up live ops. So running a game like this requires a staff, a big staff, right? So you've got your main producers, you've got your live ops team, which is planning events and content, and they're 2-3 months, 4 months in some cases down the road, working with art, building out all the rewards and all the the things that are going into stuff that's relaunching, that's releasing. And so you've got kind of that team plus engineering, right? Building modes or building new features and things. And we did that. We literally sort of just jumped in with both feet when we took the game over and fixed a bunch of things we thought were worth fixing. I'm not talking about web mounts. I'm thinking like trading and trying to deal with account locking and issues with fraud and taking accounts, and then later on the economy and taking away the loot boxes. And we put a fair amount, right or wrong, we put a fair amount of content in the game. Some of it that I'm very proud of, and some that I'm like, ugh, it's not so great looking back, right? But we were learning and figuring things out and trying to figure out what content you guys wanted and what content you didn't want. So I think that was all good lessons learned. I think right now, what we've done is we've kind of hibernated that a little bit. It didn't make sense to have live ops people or content being created, until we could get the engine upgrade done.
Yeah.
It's just not worth investing that kind of time and effort. And so, I know that there's a note in here about the seasonal events, and I apologize for being late with some of those updates. I know we've had kind of a skeleton crew. on the live ops side of things, at least, on the production side, kind of keeping things going, right? But it's fan service. It's literally just me wanting to keep the game up for you guys. I know that it's not the greatest experience right now, but much like Fallen Earth, it just, it's our way of kind of saying, hey, we're still committed to the game. We're keeping the servers online while we do all this other stuff. I think the 64-bit effort that we're engaged in now feels far more productive than anything we've done in the past. And the reason I say that is, we've got RTX cards, we've got 64-bit processing, we've got a number of areas where the game is slowly not able to run. Either it crashes or it doesn't run well. And so I feel like that clock is ticking very loudly in the back of my head, and we've got to fix that. And so just for those people, reading the updates, or those people in the game, they may look at this first step and say, wow, why are we doing this? Because by and large, the game looks exactly the same. There's no visual upgrade. There's no, we pulled back from all that. One of the things our predecessors tried to do with the 2.x upgrades was they tried to bite off a bunch of stuff, right? A new visual engine and a new lighting engine, and they, pulled a bunch of content over from the main game and remodeled it. It was like, again, trying to kind of hit a home run where you had like 6 different vectors of things that had changed, and it just proved impossible. The code base was so large we couldn't pull it off. So this is the antithesis of that. This is the opposite of that, where we just took a very, very narrow view. Let's get the game upgraded, so we're using some of the components of 2x, but it's just enough to get it to 64-bit. And so, just getting the game stable on modern platforms is the goal right now, right? Get the basics. So, from there, I think there are some questions in the open letter about what comes next, right? What are we going to do after the 64-bit upgrade? And I frankly, that list is very big. I think it breaks down into some things that I'll break them into categories. Some things that are already done, that we're going to kind of go back to. One of the biggest is probably the biggest thing on your list, which is anti-cheat. So, let's talk about anti-cheat. So the plan definitely is, as soon as this 1.30 version is ready to launch, we're going back to easy anti-cheat. That's probably not a controversial statement. And then we've got a server-side anti-cheat product as well. So that's going to require a little more tuning. It's already been integrated. There's a little bit of upgrade work to get on the newest version of easy anti-cheat. It's been, I think, a year or two since we have run that in the game. But I think probably, everybody can agree that was maybe the best effort so far, was easy anti-cheat in terms of capability and being able to manage the cheating situation. So the goal hopefully here is to have a client-side anti-cheat and a server-side anti-cheat that we're running concurrently, and training the server. Again, in all honesty, we've already paid for the back-end server-side anti-cheat. It's just been a matter of getting the code base finished so we can, the integration's mostly there. We just got to get that finished up and start testing it and getting live user data flowing through that. So what I will do is maybe show off a little bit about where we are on the 64-bit process. I know a lot of people read the updates and it feels like we're in never-ending development hell, right? Of here's an update that's this long, it's never going to end, we're never going to get anywhere. So I did prepare some stuff for today. I'm going to caveat this a little bit. I'm going to say 2 things. One is, this is not a shipping build, so you can look at the frame rates, you can look at the stutters. This is just stuff we threw together for today for people that logged in. That I appreciate you guys jumping in to see where we're at with the game. I thought it'd be fun to show some of this off because we haven't publicly. But I'm going to throw it out there. This is not a shipping build. So we have a lot of optimizations that go into what we call a shipping build that streamline how the game runs. It increases the frame rate and all that stuff. So know that. And the other thing is, we just kind of threw this together. So if you see glitches and other things like that, then that is, we're still working on it, obviously.
The recording was very smooth. There
Yeah,
was like one stutter that you would normally have in the live game,
yeah,
but I suppose like when you're on a new, not necessarily a new platform, but like a better foundation, that's like stuff you can also start tackling.
right.
It's like see what kind of logic makes sense on for garbage collection on 64-bit. Like, do you give people like an option to let them increase the time if they have sufficient RAM, in which it does garbage collection? Because now you're not as easily running into issues where the game is just you know getting to 4 GB and just
Yeah.
crashing because it's running out of memory.
So yeah, and so let's talk about that. And again, I apologize for the stutters in the video. We kind of threw this together. Literally, the team was working over the weekend to get some stuff that we could show off. And I wish I could say I planned it. I didn't. It's just where development landed. And so apologies for the volume on the videos there that was a bit loud. But like I said, it was kind of thrown together last minute, so we could just kind of show you what we have going on. I agree 100%, Frosty. So I think getting into, our goal is to get that shipped as soon as possible. We're getting pretty close. There are a handful of things. Interestingly, getting the editor up and running, because it's just a straight 64 port, allowed us to get into the districts pretty quickly, way faster than last time. Last time this whole involved convoluted process of editor and then rebaking things and then fixing about the lighting problems and just on and on and on, and it felt like forever until we could actually get into maps and start playing around. Right now we've actually been able to get it, most of the maps open fine. We've got some there's some 64-bit issues in financial that we're working on, but as soon as possible, we want to get that shipped. So getting that shipped, it's straight across sort of port. So I want people to understand, like, they're not going to see, I see some comments in the chat there. Visually, it's really the same. I'll say this: it's got 2.0 memory management. It's got a couple very slight upgrades, but the biggest thing is the RTX cards, and just being able to run this on newer hardware and really amp up the settings. The memory crashes aren't there, so that is huge. But getting into anti-cheat, I think that's big. That's definitely a launch thing. So if anything, in terms of holding up the beta, we want the beta to be on the new anti-cheat for you guys, that sort of thing. I think the next category of stuff is stuff that's done and written, but it's in 2x, right? So there's just a lot of stuff that we need to kind of pull backwards. We wanted to just get a single, right? Let's just get on base, get the 64-bit piece done, and then start gradually pulling. So, Frosty, your stuff actually kind of goes into a third bucket, which is kind of just new settings, right? Kind of adding code, adding the ability to tweak things, related to the larger memory model, and streamlining the game, pulling in some of the configuration editing, right? Which we we do allow within the APB config editor that we've approved. But it'd be nice to have that in game. I think the things for me, and this came up a little bit I'm hopping around a little bit in the open letter, was there's some hosting things we did with being able to put up events without patching. They're all on the console side, that we were going to benefit from if we'd gone that route. I'd love to pull that back. We spend an inordinate amount of time going through all these machinations to try to push out events, and I think it'd be nice if we could stage the event, way earlier, get it, put it in the code basically, and then be able to just turn it on. And most people don't. This game is 12 years old now, so the ways that we put things online are very, very complicated. But the 2.0 code already has that. The 2.0 code also has cooking, and I think that's probably the next thing after anti-cheat that I would want to get in there, because, as you know, Frosty, on the newer upgraded version, the game, there's no hitches. We were able to streamline the performance, mainly because we were able to cook the data, and the way that it loads and streams in is much faster. And so getting the cooking system out of 2.0, putting that in 1.3, or 1.3 or 1.31, is probably the very next thing. On the hosting side is also all of what I'm going to call cross-district. So there is the ability to dynamically expand and collapse maps. So based on player population, when we ramp up. It opens new districts. So I think going back to threat segregation, um, I'm going to call it threat segregation. It's really just dynamic threat segregation. So you can picture it as, we've got the bands, right? Silver or gold, silver, bronze, right? Those bands. But the bands become a little more elastic. It really just looks at your threat and it sort of says, oh, we've got less people on. We're going to have one district. And then as people kind of populate, then it starts splitting, adding more servers, and the bands tighten up all the way. So you're kind of getting more and more matched. I think that's stage one of what we want to do on the hosting side, and then after that is cross district, which really means threat becomes very very evenly matched. We grab anyone who is as close to your threat level as possible. We can pull them off any server, including EU servers, which is the world merge we talked about, and then put you guys into an instance and let you guys run around and have your match. So there's this kind of roadmap on how we want hosting to work. It's just a very very old model that we're using right now. I saw that pop up from Fang in terms of phasing. It's absolutely phasing is one of the biggest goals. We never finished phasing in the 2x code, so trying to pull phasing code in and rewrite that. But that's a big part of the roadmap. Um, there's a database, like I got to say, like the back end and the database just need work. They're crazy old. They're on old technology. Like at some point, we're going to have to bite off rewriting that stuff and migrating. We've got, other game stuff that we've worked on has given us the chance to expand some of what Gamers First has in its arsenal, and that was intentional to try to kind of push forward without actually having to go through and rewrite a bunch of the back end of APB. So we've rewritten it for other games, and we've got kind of a code base there that we can kind of, move on to. So again, there's kind of stuff that we pulled across 64-bit, stuff that exists in 2.x. One of the other things that came up was new content, right? So I think that's probably on everybody's mind, like what new content is out there, what can we do? I think the easiest one is the 2 new contacts that we designed, just increasing the level cap there. The main problem with the 2 new contacts is that we strip mined a lot of the content that was going to unlock for them. And so we need to go back and backfill the guns and the clothing items and the kind of an EMP that we had done and some car things. So I think we want to kind of go back through those 2 new contacts, take a look at them, fill them back in properly, get the rewards that they offer in line. So I think that's good. So with that means staffing the project properly, and I think we've taken a very I'm just glancing at chat every once in a while, and you guys crack me up. Some of the things you guys type. With the now I'm totally. Someone asked what conditioner I use, and I don't know. I actually off the top of my head I can't think of it. But we've taken a very conservative approach, and so they've asked. We have about 2.5 developers on the project right now, purely focused on the 64-bit upgrade. It's not something you can do with a large team just because you're stepping on a lot of stuff. So they've been laser focused, and then bringing in live ops. Like I talked, the reason I brought that all up was the next step is bringing back on some of the live ops managers, bringing on some of the artists, bringing on some of the producers, and starting to go back through this. I think there is a game balance, weapon balance effort in our future. Everybody's going to disagree on how to do that. Even my internal team disagrees, right? It's such a messy topic. I have some ideas on how we want to do it. That we're gonna see how that goes. So that's all I'm gonna say. There are some ideas we're floating around. I think that we'd like to try some things. One of the biggest problems I think we have with weapon balance is what I mentioned. We do test districts. We try to get people involved, but it's a bit of an echo chamber, right? So you get some people that play certain weapons and they're very hardcore about their feelings, and you get other people who don't like that weapon or know that that weapon counters certain things. So it's just a tough problem to solve. So we'll get into that. I don't want to touch it too much until we're ready, because I think it kind of needs to be a focus. It's not something you can do on the side. I think it needs to be a
Oh yeah.
focus, and potentially a focus alongside new weapons, as we're planning out the slate of potentially new legendaries or new things we want to do there. I definitely think it's something you got to kind of do all together. Someone is absolutely correct in the chat on what I want to do. I'll just leave it at that. But there are some newer technologies now today that I think we could employ to maybe help out this thing, and it kind of ties in with the server side anti-cheat and some of the things we're collecting on that side. So lots of good stuff there.
I think one of the big things, and especially more modern game, is the ability to run patches without actually needing to do a patch, like
Yeah.
changing server-side values and being able to change guns, for
Yep.
example, in this case, on the fly. I think that would really help, especially when it comes
100%,
to
like 100%.
actually like focusing on certain weapons or like a certain set of weapons and actually iterating on them without actually just needing a patch every single time you would want to try another thing.
Yep.
I think that is just like one of those things that is just like all about the game and just making the process 10 times harder.
Yep. I think, at the risk of saying something controversial, I think not only having those kind of live kind of controls, but even potentially having certain changes that occur in a specific map, where there's just, this week there's a set of trial, basically there's just a constant rotation. I love the idea of taking some of the guns out of the closet that nobody's playing with and buffing them or doing some fun things with them, and just having that be a regular feature over in a side district that, if you want to go play financial, and we've got this kind of constant, and that in that way we can actually collect the stats from regular gameplay, see how the meta changed or see how that blended, and then possibly keep them, possibly go like, hey, we liked how this worked, that's going to stage over, and then we're going to kind of keep rotating through and having just kind of this kind of almost constant trial of new stuff.
Yeah.
So I think there's some things there. The other thing we're looking at, again, I don't want to spend a lot of this AMA talking about SDFU, but we did some very specific things in the game design of SDFU, which were based on ideas that we have for APB. So, SDFU ends up being kind of a nice test case without dragging the APB player base through some of those ideas. But, definitely there is a crafting system in there. There is an entirely, it's a mod system based on APB, but with, like I said, crafting and maybe a couple other things we're doing that I think would be kind of interesting to do for APB. I think definitely looking at the progression for APB and the way that you unlock things, it feels punitive to newer players, especially how that kind of goes, how that ties into matchmaking and other things. So I would love to see some of that. We're testing it a little bit, and if we like how that works over there, then we might pull some of those ideas over. And then lastly, I know I've talked about some of the things on the roadmap here, but the tutorial, right? The tutorial district, the tutorial as a concept just is terrible right now, and there's a lot of ideas that we would love to do there, a lot of which we've talked about and some of which we haven't, but I think taking a crack, my biggest criticism right now is the tutorial explains how to manipulate the interface of the game, but doesn't really tell you what you should be doing. Like when I went through the tutorial, I had no idea really how to get into matches and complete objectives and level up, like what ranking was or how to get, like just how to kind of get into the cycle of the game. I think people often just rely on other players to tell them kind of, what am I doing here? What do I, how do I get started? So I think that if anything, that's the number one thing I'd like to kind of focus on in a tutorial, is just get me into kind of the main core game. Here's a gun, and you start kind of working with, here's how to go to a contact and pledge them and get a mission and get into the game. which is something that the tutorial's not great at. So, and the reason I say that is I just feel like we could do everything in the world to try to improve the game and make it better. But if our tutorial doesn't, if our first time user experience doesn't get better, we're not going to get new players. And I think
Yeah.
everybody can agree, no matter where you sit on the spectrum of this game, that getting new players into the game has got to be job number one, right? Going back out, marketing the game, getting people, sort of, new content and everything. But like, just getting people that like the game would, I still believe it is one of the most unique experiences out there, right? There's not a lot of games like APB. I think having that get expanded and put back out there in a hopefully in a smooth, kind of technically smooth way would be, that's the dream. I do want to give some time. So any questions so far? How are we doing on time? Kind of look at the time here. Great. I feel like I've just been rambling here. Again, I want to just thank everybody for joining the chat here. The mods have been taking notes here. I'm gonna check that channel real quick.
One of the things you mentioned as well with especially when it comes to like weapon balance, doing like a mix, especially when it comes to buffing guns. Um,
Yeah,
it's
you
like,
have to do them as a group. I think. I don't know that you
yeah,
can just do one, because then people are
yeah,
like, I think you have to kind of like tweak all the levels and see how that fits. Um, but that's key for doing new content. I think, like, we have to figure out those lanes where these guns sit and make sure that they're sitting in their lane properly, right? And then be able to kind of insert a new gun, because it's a fairly full game. There's a lot of content there. There's a lot of guns, and like some of those guns border on territory of other guns. So just making sure we have a nice set of clean lanes to start with, when we start to go put more content in. So I'm going to let Emily put out, for those that stick around for the stream. We do have a code. It's a G1C giveaway for everybody. We'll put that in chat for you guys. I'm gonna let Emily handle that, but I know I think we were able to put that code in, for you guys, as a small reward for coming and hanging out and watching. And so I'm seeing a little bit of a post poke from her here, letting me know that they've got that kind of staged and ready. Again, we put this together pretty fast. I was on vacation for a little bit, so we've apologies for some of the technical stuff. If it feels a little bit loose, it's because we're sort of throwing this together for you guys and making sure it happened. I do want to talk a little bit about console. I know
yeah.
there are console folks that rightfully so have been waiting forever. I've talked about the console process, and what makes it very tricky. Not only does it require submissions to update, so we have to submit to first parties like Microsoft and Sony. We're now not current gen, which is another bit of a wrinkle, right? We're on an older console cycle, and we have a publisher on that side, so we don't actually control directly that relationship. We have to kind of stage it. We go through Koch Media. They actually changed their name to Play On. We have to submit to them. They go through QA cycle, then they submit. So I just want to say, look, I see all the console players out there. I want everybody to understand, there's PC and there's console, and the amount of revenue spending on console, as small as that player base is equal to or larger than the revenue spent on PC, largely because they're just sort of in their own bubble and they play and they enjoy what they, God bless them, they enjoy what they do there. But so just know that we want to treat them with kindness. They've really put up with a pretty awful experience, and so there will be an effort. Again, we've got all that console stuff written over here, right, in the 2x code, that is going to need to make its way over into the 1.30 code, so that we can merge the two. And we talked about that early on, but merging the two code bases is just so important. And the rules on console over the last 5 years, 4.5 years since we've been taking over, have changed dramatically, right? So we can now do things like account sharing, where they have an account that can play on PC and also play on console. So I do want to give them hope. We're trying to work the kinks out there. It is something that just has a ton of hoops. It's we unfortunately just a ton of hoops we have to jump through. So bear with us. The whole console rendering engine is there. We can move that over. One of the bummers that I will just let you know on the console is that they did a lot of screen updates, and one of the systems they used for those screen updates is not present in 1.30 right now, and so there is some technical hurdles we're going to have to jump through in terms of how much of that infrastructure do we want to merge back over in order to support all of the console screens that were created. And so again, bear with us. This particular track of getting out 1.30. One of the unfortunate parts or fallouts of that was we had to kind of abandon a bunch of the console UIs that are in 2x that we're going to have to figure out how to pull those over. So bear with me. We will get there. I think frankly having one consistent code base, one set of servers, it makes it so much easier for us to maintain the game. Certainly letting Xbox and PlayStation folks play each other, that also cleans up a big mess because those populations are already low, but combining them would be a good thing. And then I don't know if we'll combine the populations of PC, but just letting them kind of get onto the main core back end of what we do here instead of just being this horrible island off in the distance that just never gets any attention. So I think I got to some of those topics. What haven't we talked to here, Frosi? I know you had other questions you wanted to bring up.
I think toxicity is a big one.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I mean, I think again, speaking to that, I think there are better tools today, and that goes into the back end rewrite. We have this very, very old back end, and I won't say what technology is running on, but it's not technology even supported now. And so, moving the database over and moving the platform for the back end also gives us the ability to open up chat moderation tools, toxicity. I do, one thing you pointed out, like, so as we compiled the questions here and the answers, it's easy to reroll, right? It's easy to, in a free-to-play game, there's no barrier to entry. So if you get banned, you leave, you come back, we do our best to try to fix that, right? We have talked ad nauseum internally about griefing and about toxicity and about chat, and we do our best right now. Admittedly, the game is understaffed in terms of in-game moderation, and so that's something that I think we're gonna have to change as we ramp back up here. But I think that some of that can be assisted by tools that exist today that didn't exist 10, 12 years ago. So I think that, are we doing enough? I don't know. That the honest answer is I don't know. I feel like every time we try to come up with the right solutions for the APB community, there's always a little bit of a twist, something that we didn't anticipate. You guys are crafty like that, and but I think that there are some things on deck that we're going to try that I think will help. That hopefully we can start. What I mean by that is I think there are some automatic moderation things that, based on current day technologies, that can assess the types of chat and just throttle back people's ability to chat, right? Like, that's the easiest thing to do. Put it on a what we call radiation system, where you have fall off, where they get we throttle back your ability to do certain things, and then you gain that back over time. And if you keep doing it, we throttle it back off again. And so, having those systems, I think, just in our game is just kind of a necessary thing.
I think APB could also, like, this kind of goes into two questions, but it's like, I think APB could also benefit from a system, especially when it comes to like physical griefing, such as blocking objectives with cars and whatnot.
Yep.
It could just really do with like a passive mode that is potentially tied to the ignore system, so you can ignore the collisions with that player for a couple of hours. I think that would also go really well with a account-wide or like account-wide ignore list.
Yeah.
Because right now, when you add someone to ignore, you add just that one character. But like,
right,
it's very easy to just make a new character if you want to troll. But it's like if he could maybe in the background sort of like ignore the account ID or
Mm-hmm.
something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's just like a mass ignore every single character on that account, and then those background systems that block collisions for those characters for at least a couple of hours go into effect for the entire account. I think that would go really well, and I think that would really help with griefing on stream as well, which is something
Yep.
I'm sure you've seen a lot of, especially when it comes to larger APB streamers. It makes the game
You poor
like
guys.
in many cases borderline
Unplayable.
impossible to play. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel like a lot of what got asked, which I appreciate you organizing, were quality of life changes. I think that's one of them. Certainly something we should be playing with, right? Certainly something that we can be like, hey, how do we improve this? Because you're right. I think right now, currently in the game, it's very easy for one player to negatively affect a lot of players,
Yeah.
or one player to affect a whole stream. And as you know, like games sort of live and die online and streaming, and it's very challenging to get a lot of streamers, especially like look, streamers are already putting themselves out there, right? They're their audience is going to critique their gameplay. APB has a very high skill cap. It's easy to make mistakes in APB. It's also amazing when you see someone who's good at the game, right? You can really appreciate their skill level, and so. Anyway, I think you're on the money there in terms of at minimum just those are problems we need to solve, right? And ways we could solve them. We'll experiment with those. I think there is often a tendency to overthink things, right? So like with that specific feature, internally we have the discussion of like, well, how's it going to get abused, right? Are you going to flag someone as an ignore and then abuse that in a way where you're sort of speeding past them in a mission, so I think the
Yeah.
main thing is you can't do it to people who are on your mission, right? So anybody on your opposing team, you
Oh yeah.
can't do that with, or they're going to automatically be, the ignore list won't work for them if you
Yeah.
get
That
if and then you have to think about like districts like Crate where you've got two big teams and how to kind of manage that, because we did see a lot of abuse in Crate where people would do wacky things and kind of like try to ruin the other team's experience there. So, but I think at this point, at the risk of saying something controversial, I think everybody gets to be guinea pigs a little bit right now. The player base is a little on the smaller side, so it does give us the opportunity to kind of say, hey, what do you guys think about this? And then, oops, all right, well, we'll pull it out and we'll try something else. But hopefully, I think people will appreciate just seeing the movement and seeing that progress, right? Like, hey, we're going to try some things and we'll see how those work, and if we need to keep tweaking them, we will.
I think like you were spot on there. In general in APB, there's always been a feeling that not much is being done, but players have been really happy when they see something is being done. So even if the first couple steps or like ideas you guys have don't work as intended and people get around them or whatnot, people still see that you guys are trying. I think that means a lot to
Yep.
many players.
Yep.
I think there's like one of those things as well with the engine upgrade and then the 64-bit. It's like very little progress has actually been shown. So there's like always this skepticism. How long is it gonna take? It's like it's not something you actually experience as a player. So it's like people are relatively skeptical about it.
Yep.
Is it
Yep.
gonna happen? Is it not going to happen? But once they actually see it, they're much more prone to be on your side and actually let you do your things because it shows you're actually doing something and trying.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so that's the goal, right? We're gonna have to try something. Someone mentioned the EMP grenade in chat. That's
Hmm.
something I'm super excited about. I think it's a very different kind of concept, and I think it fits well in the game. So that is something in terms of new content that is tied to the new contacts, that I am excited to kind of get to, right? So there are definitely some content things that we absolutely want to get out to you guys to have fun with. Certainly, there's a new card that I think we showed to SVCT that we have not released. The game needs a little bit of tweaking, but
Did you?
there's
I don't think you showed it to us. At
maybe
least it
select
wasn't
people then,
recent.
yeah,
But yeah.
yeah. Uh, so there's stuff there. I think that one is a bit of a cheat because because Reloaded had worked on it, so we didn't originate that car. So we can kind of pick it up and just polish it off. And my big thing is there just weren't any kits for it. There weren't any. It was kind of bare bones. It's like, okay, well, we have the basics of the car, but as you know, like when you put something like that in a game, then you kind of want to be able to support it just like you would some of the other cars, and build it out. So
Yeah,
let's
I
see.
mean,
Go ahead.
recently, well, the most recent car that they released, the Growl,
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure that also has not really received kits outside of the one with the like at the start with
Yep.
the Revelations pack. I'm pretty sure it was, but I think when it released, most people kind of just went with the like base design anyways,
Mm.
because the car kind of came in a design that looked like it had a kit on it. So people didn't necessarily mind that much that there was on release not that many kits or like ways to customize it, because first of all it was something new, and then second of all it looked pretty good out of the box.
Yeah. Fair.
So
Fair. And it's just I think
it
a lot of the car designers just want something new to play with. Um, uh, all right. So what other? Let's see. I just want to kind of skim our topics here, make sure we get to everything, and then we'll open it up for questions. Emily, let's see. Almost. I've got a question here about sharing the code for some free G1C. We'll do that. Emily, why don't we do that once we get into Q&A? We'll start throwing that out there, and then people can get a little Christmas bonus there. On the list here,
the
we talked about. Um,
See, I'm scrolling through it right now as
yep,
well. I'm pretty
yep.
sure we have just about everything. There is one question. Obviously, I have like had a quality of life document attached to the open letter.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if you've like actually
I
properly looked
haven't.
through
I
it all, but
apologize.
was there?
Yeah, I don't. I don't. I think I was
Okay.
supposed to link it, and I got distracted. So we'll try and depending on how it's is it link how lengthy is it? We may post it and make it available. Like I don't generally I try not to have
Uh,
people
it,
have to
it
link it to
it
something else.
it was linked in the thread. You've also linked it in your copy paste on the forums.
Okay,
But
great.
it's just a long list of things that are, at least on paper, things to could just make the game better. So just account wide versions of the currently there's a couple cars that just don't exist on a certain faction
Yep.
normally in the
Just
game.
evening out that. Yeah.
And then there's Arma's versions of it, and then those are only specific to one character. There's the Han Koi Wolf, which is a card that's recently gotten really, really popular. There's also no account-wide version of that, even though there's no, it's not faction specific. So one pack or like one item on Armas can be purchased on both Enforcer and Criminal. There's no wide versions of that. There's a couple of guns that are currently only in like very expensive packs, which is keeping them from being played, even though they're
Mm,
not that bad.
mm,
And then obviously, like the at the very bottom, there was like a big thing, which is kind of also tackling the new player experience, which would be to make roles account wide, possibly, because right
yep.
now roles are the primary source of gaining slotted weapons
Hmm.
and modifications, and they're an extreme
Mm,
grind.
yeah.
To unlock everything in one role, it's about 10,000 kills.
Yeah. We talked about
Um,
the progression and kind of like
yeah,
there's kind
and
of some.
it,
It was.
it's rough.
I think they just
It's really
couldn't
rough.
decide back then if they wanted the game to be like an RPG or not. Like they wanted it to feel like
Mm,
an RPG, and they built in some RPG systems like the leveling up and getting things. But in truth, it's a PvP game, so all of those systems run counter to evening the playing field, and like having to start over and regrind through stuff you've already done just
yeah,
isn't. It's fine to have to do it once, I think, but um, doing it.
that was kind of also something I mentioned. Is like new players struggle really badly right now because they need to get kills to unlock slotted weapons. Then they also need to grind money to buy mods from other players, and
Yep.
that can get really expensive really fast. The issue I put in there was make or like the proposal I had in there was to make roles account wide, which means for example, right now, a player can unlock a two-slotted weapon on one character, and then they feel like they're just completely tied to that character because the second they start a new character, they have nothing. I think that is a pretty big issue, especially when it comes to just like new players wanting to try different factions and whichever
Hmm.
feels better. It's
Hmm.
like I've personally had cases where a newer player was like, "Oh, I just don't have the weapons on this character.
Yeah.
Can we play on this specific faction?"
Hmm.
And then it was
It's
kind of
rough. Yeah.
going into that. So make it so at least the slotted weapons are the unlocks are account wide, but then also make it so they get like untradeable mods at certain rank thresholds, which then means they have at least untradeable mods that they
Hmm.
can use on
So,
their slotted guns without having to grind. I think I did the math. It was multiple hundreds of thousands of APB cash to get all of the mods currently, which are just one of each, and that is just
yeah, that's
it is
crazy.
it also just it's a lot, and it also just takes away from the designing aspect, because you're like, oh hey, there's a new cool new car here that I kind of want to buy, but it costs 40,000 and I had 60,000 for this one mod.
Right.
So it kind of just takes away from each other, because mods are mandatory but so are cars.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's
No,
just not a it's just not a system that works for new players, and I think it's just one of those areas that new players could really benefit from having improved, while also the current player base, which grind these this essentially there's a 16th level of every main weapon roll that then just awards you the chrome skin, and maybe on some weapons a specific like looking version of that gun with a special stock on it and something.
yeah.
And that roll, that alone takes 10,000 extra kills. So 20,000 kills in total, which is a lot for just something you have on one character.
Yeah.
I
No.
think it
We.
would be beneficial for it to just be account wide. It would help new players, and then also people that actually grind the role to not feel like, oh, I'm not on this one specific character that is like really high into the role, and then I'm just making no progress.
Yeah. So I agreed. I think we definitely need to look at progression. I like progression's tied to that sort of database backend rework. So there's a question on my mind, like when do we do it? It's a lot to bite
Yeah.
off. It's kind of necessary, but it's not the worst thing in the game right now. Like I'd say anti-cheat is the worst thing in the game right now. So it's just one of those things we have to kind of stage out. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, I see a lot of chat about the anti-cheat. I did talk about it in the beginning of the stream. We're going to post this as a video, I think, on Twitter, and we'll probably put it up on YouTube for you guys to rewatch. But um, we did talk about kind of like the really basic things we want to get into that I think hopefully will make that experience a lot better. I think someone also asked about the removal of threat and just kind of like merging the districts. As much as like that is a no-win situation. I think if we leave
Mhm.
threat in place, you can't get missions. There's just not a lot of people, or you have people de-threading and kind of coming down anyway to bronze, right? So you end up with the same thing. At least by taking the threat away, which I know is not ideal, at least we just get people in matches and they can all sit in the same district and kind of like the player base is just so low right now for obvious reasons that having threat-based districts is not it's just not productive. Like you're there's not enough people to get matches and play the game. So it doesn't it's not a great experience, but it beats having just where you just sit and don't get any matches.
It
So
also just goes with the fact that, maintaining the live game right now is more of a love letter, like keeping the game playable for those that want to play it, rather than, just taking it down till
right,
64-bit happens and whatnot.
right,
I think it's a nice gesture. Obviously, like there's still enough people playing the game. I feel a bit bad for the NA players, especially a lot of the Brazilians I know have recently been kind of like disappointed when the West server on NA is populated, because it's just not playable for
the
them, and
the
then
ping
they
times, yeah.
make up a decent amount, which I guess also prompts the question, would it be smart to maybe go back to at least a central
Just
server for NA until something happens? But then again, it's like one of those
yeah,
things where it's opportunity cost as well, right?
yeah,
It's,
yeah. I mean,
does
and,
it
and
make
it and it
sense?
may be a short-term thing, right? Like the
Yeah,
reason we got rid of the central server was we were ramping up on Riot and we were putting kind of more bandwidth together, having kind of starting to try to get um, to more regionalized servers, and the hard part about putting something in Central and taking away, LA and New York is like then everybody's unhappy. And it,
Yeah.
it, it levels the playing field, but it also just makes everybody unhappy about their ping time.
Yeah.
Whereas, I absolutely understand the frustration of the Brazilian players, and we certainly want to fix that, right? Get kind of, I think they get better ping time into New York. So that would
Yeah,
be
they get a lot better to east,
just we
and
just
then
don't get a
west
lot
is
of
basically just unplayable.
right, but we don't get a lot of play on the East. We
Mm,
I think our concentration ends up being Europe, and then West. So it's something we'll have to work around. I think once we do sort of cross district and phasing, I think that also becomes a lot better. We're kind of
yeah,
aggregating people, putting them on the closest server, trying to keep them with people that have better, similar ping times. I think all of that is super helpful.
yeah. I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like you can tell it's like an issue that just comes from NA just not really being populated at all.
Yeah.
And then it's a matter of like, do you think is it worth it to sort of build an infrastructure around them? And
Um, yeah.
the answer is most likely just it's probably not
spinning up
worth it because
spinning up
first
a
of all
data
it's a
center.
temporary thing,
Oh,
and
yeah,
then
and
yeah,
bear in mind, APB cannot be cloud hosted. So
yeah,
we'll start the conversation there, right? It means ordering hardware, getting infrastructure spun up, deploying builds, and doing all
yeah,
that. It's a mess, and so certainly I feel for South American players and people trying to get in on stuff is something absolutely we're committed to fixing. But until we've taken a couple steps, I think it's almost just kind of wasted effort, really, to kind of like you're kind
yeah,
of fixing the symptom and not fixing the problem. And I'd rather fix the problem and then expand the servers. There are some things that we can do once we've gone through some of these steps that will make spinning up data centers easier. So I don't know if you recall, but at some point we had I think a Poland server on deck ready to go. We had or infrastructure, over there. We had quite a bit of infrastructure ready, and they just had to kind of take it all, abandon those plans just because of stuff not happening. So,
yeah.
all right, so we are about an hour in. For those who have been hanging on again, thank you very much. Um, Emily, why don't you, if you have questions that you've been saving, if you want to post those to me, um, that would be great. I'm going to start with some questions, and Frosty, if you saw stuff that you think is worth jumping into,
Mhm.
happy to do that. Um,
Yeah.
okay, well, all right, she's ready. There's a bunch of stuff. Um, we can go ahead and start, if you want to give away the codes, but we're gonna get into, we've gone for an hour here, so I appreciate everybody watching. Let's go ahead and post the code, Emily, so people can get a little bit of free G1C, um, and then I'll start answering. So, any chance of VoIP returning was one of the ones that got posted there, and the answer is yes. For those that don't know, Reloaded had bought very specific um, hardware, like they bought a license to that whole system, and it Vivux, and it just they got bought by Unity, and it got, I mean, it was just completely overhauled. And so what Vivix did is they turned off the servers that we were running on, and we had to kind of like scramble, and kind of do a bunch of stuff there. So the VoIP system has been a bit of a mess, especially on console where we can't update it. And so the plan is absolutely to get that back in the game. I think it's a big part of the game, makes the game easier to play as long as there's not toxicity happening there. But it's a little lower on the priority, right? So you get this stuff done, we can get the new Vivix library implemented, and then um, we can get that stuff turned back on. So appreciate your patience on that. Um, I, you know, I'm hopping around here. Let's go to the top because I'm gonna go to the bottom, and then that's just some of the more recent ones. Someone asked about Riot. Let's see. Why didn't you take the idea from Riot of a season contact integrated into the main game mode? We've certainly tossed it around. There were a lot of Riot as a mode failed. That's not a controversial statement. Um, but there were a lot of ideas in there, I think, and certainly technology that got built for Riot that I've gone on record saying that I actually quite like. So um, this person mentioned one of them, which was just a sort of season contact that we could kind of play with, or even some of the game mechanics, just things we were doing in the Riot mode, not the mode itself, but things we were doing there that I'd love to refactor and kind of have some fun with, even for holiday events or for other things. It'd be nice to revisit at some point. Again, a little lower on the priority, but that sort of thing. Ooh, I don't know if I want to go on to the next one. Um, all right, I'll open this can of worms. So the question is, with the success of STFU, when will we see NFTs in APB? Um, so I'll go on record saying I don't think you will see what have been traditional NFTs in APB. We'll start there. That's not what we want to do. I think there have been a lot of grifty kind of like pre-selling of NFTs and things like that, and I don't like that. We've actually with STFU we've been looking at various technologies. So again, I'm going to go on I'm going to go on record saying that that's not what we want to do. All right. I'm going to put, obviously there's a caveat, a but on the end of that. I do want to throw the concept out, and I've talked about this as, if you found small little things here. One of the things Little Orbit is very much dedicated to is user generated content. And we have some fantastic creators in our economy and in our community who have made some amazing clothing and cars and car designs and that sort of thing. It would be extremely cool to be able to reward our creators for generating content that makes the game better, right? So that let's start with that thesis. For those that don't know, SDFU continues that trend. We have a player-made mode where players make actual game levels that other players can. It's PVE co-op where other players can join into a team and then fight through that mode. And so what I do think, and I've said this, and again, maybe this is controversial, but I think blockchain is a way to literally pay a share of revenue to the creators that generate content who drives my game. If I were to try to do that in any other method, right, where I was ACHing, it would be a nightmare. You'd have to maybe imagine what that would look like. You'd have a content creator signing up, giving bank details, and going through all kinds of hoops to try to kind of get rewarded, right? I could certainly give out currency, but I think truly rewarding people based on what we make, a share of royalty is something that something we keep trying to crack as a concept. So I think what you will see, maybe as we get further into this, APB already has a marketplace. APB already has content creation tools. Players can make stuff and put it on the marketplace. I think trying to crack this idea of a person who wants to come into my game and make content that makes my game better, I want to attract all of them, right? I want to be the central place for people to do that. And in order to make the game as attractive as possible, I think there are some blockchain technologies that could be helpful to do that. I think the NFT craze is gone. I think again, there were a lot of grifty, very poorly done things that were largely there to make money. That's not what we're going to do. So what you won't see is Little Orbit doing an NFT launch and making money on it. I think what you will see is a free-to-play game like APB or like STFU, which is just free to play. You get in, you don't ever have to touch any of the blockchain mechanics. But if you want to be a creator and you want to create content, there will be ways potentially for you to earn real rewards, money that is worth, or rewards that are worth real money. And so we can do that, largely with in-game kind of currency and that sort of thing. But I think for people who really want to do something like that and stick with the game and put, some of the stuff is very time consuming. We want to explore it. So I've said my piece there. Hopefully you guys kind of understand the lane I'm trying to get us into. It's definitely an optional thing, and we're not out there preaching, and then more importantly, we're not out there making money on it. It's not something we're doing for revenue. It's something we're hoping that our players can do for revenue. So, when they're trading and building stuff, and also streamers. So for Frosi or other people who stream, I think having a community, having in the case of like SDFU where you built a level and you're kind of promoting that on your stream, like rewarding that person for doing that and getting that. Streamers are often looking for how to be content creators or content promoters more full time, right? They're trying to maybe transition and do that on a more regular basis, and we want to help that. So anyway, that's I think that's a can of worms. I actually don't like the term NFT, and I don't want to relabel something out of just trying to hide what we're doing. I just think um, I think we just want to kind of look at some of the newer technologies and see if we can allow people to grow their own audience with those technologies, or enjoy our game more with those technologies. So anyway, so there's that one.
You you touched on the topic of the marketplace.
Yep.
There's a question there that was in the quality of life document. Have you ever considered maybe adding an additional flag for people to sell their item and then let whoever has bought the item customize it further? Because right now, when you just buy an item, like let's say I buy a hoodie,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
cannot customize it anymore.
Yeah, and
It
I
is
know,
locked.
I know that was a design decision, Reloaded made, or even
Hmm.
I'd have to go revisit it. Frankly, great. I want people to be as creative. I think, honestly, the character creator in our system is still, and I'll go on record saying, still one of the best in the world. It's,
Yep.
it is bar none. The ability to create clothes and what you can do with your characters is just so crazy powerful in our game. And I've even said, I kind of, when I look at our symbol designer and I look at some of our projection tools and how we map things into layers on things, like that's Adobe Creative Cloud in a game, with more of a vector style editing tool. But it'd be great to have those tools in our other games. I certainly would like for people, for instance, in SDFU, to be able to use the same tools to customize their ships, or that sort of thing. I just think that sort of content creation system is just very, very powerful. To your point, I definitely think there are some quality of life things. One is, and you didn't mention this, but like letting console people who want to buy things off of the PC store, like
Hmm.
the symbols and things, like we should absolutely be doing that. There's no downside to that. Like console doesn't have quite as a robust, obviously a lot lower players, but they don't have the robust creator system, and it's really
Yeah.
hard to create content on
Yeah.
console. The
It is
editor is
really
just
hard.
atrocious. So allowing them to get some of the stuff, I think, would also benefit the PC players, because they now have other people
Mhm.
who are interested. And so, anyway, that's yeah. I think there are a number of things I'd like to do with the marketplace in general that would just make it a little more fun and easy to use. Um, there's a note here about proximity voice chat. That's something that is in Vivek's existing. We would just need to turn it on and integrate to it. I'm not saying it's easy to do, but it is something we've looked at. Um, um, I see some people kind of talking there in chat. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. What are LO's plans or prospects of regaining the goodwill of players, especially older ones who are bitter about the stagnation? Um, that's a great question. I think just delivering on what we said we were going to deliver, as long as that
Yeah.
takes. I don't
Yeah.
think it's been for a lack of trying. I think there's been less visible progress, definitely in the last year, because we had to take other work to kind of keep the company going, and and that sort of thing. But I think that I think hopefully people can look back and see a regular cadence of effort, um, both in terms of the upgrade and in terms of just revamping economies and some content there. So, my hope is just literally getting us to some sort of finish line on delivering something. Hopefully, the goodwill of players will recognize that. I think the anti-cheat. I think just speaking to some of the quality of life stuff that Frosty's brought up are certainly, trying to kind of improve that. I think those are all, in my opinion, just put our money where our mouth's at. That's kind of what we have been doing, and that's probably what we'll continue doing. Um, let's see. You have a game with 300 active players that you cannot upgrade or make new content. how do you plan on reviving this zombie? I can see that my content moderation people did not revise these questions. That's exactly. I've laid out a number of things. I think making it run on current hardware, right? Getting rid of some of the crashes, taking the stuff from the kind of, we'll say, the newer version of the code and putting it back in. I think we have stopped thinking of this game as an Unreal game. So I noticed there were some people in there saying, "Hey, take it down, start from scratch, rebuild it." With all due respect, I just don't think you have any idea what you're talking about. There were 100 people who worked on this game. It cost $100 million. Like, it's an insane code base. I just feel like you taking the game down and doing. So I've long since given up the idea that we're going to recreate the game. That may happen at some point. We did recently have a conversation with a publisher about trying to leap off that cliff and do something in Unreal 5 and reworking the entire game. And that would be incredibly fun. I don't know, there's just a lot to that. I mean, I think, the stuff that we're talking about here, it would be that plus plus, and we would have to get into every ounce of the progression, every ounce of other aspects of the game, because there are still things that we need to solve there. So, right now, I think we're just focused on the basics, make the game experience better. Frosi talked about griefing, toxicity; those are big things. Those things. So I'll leave it at that. When do we get motorcycles and helicopters? Moving on.
That is an
Moving on.
age-old question.
Moving on. I like the question. I don't know that this maybe isn't the game for you if that's what you're looking for. Says on a personal note, let's see. I'm curious what APB of all games on what put APB of all games on Little Orbit's radar. What did Little Orbit see in our little struggling game that made them decide to pick it up, try to dust off, get it running again? I've talked about this before, but it's worth talking about. There are elements of APB that I absolutely love. I am objectively terrible at the game. You guys have seen me play in 1 or 2 streams. I'm a nightmare. It's so simple. It sounds so simple, right? Like, look at the center of the screen, watch what you're shooting, and try to hit it. But I'm terrible at it. What I think is incredibly cool about the game is the way the missions are set up and structured as they escalate in this sort of very real kind of modern day setting that you just don't see in other games. I think the skill cap and the way those weapons, this game cannot be sort of analogized to Fortnite or other games, and the reason is that every weapon is like a class in an RPG. It's just like, you specialize in a weapon, that is who you are in game, that's what you stick with. And we made that mistake with Riot, where we kind of went, well, this other game has this mode, and largely it had already been built by our predecessors, but the core flaw there was thinking that you could just run around and pick up a gun and use it, and that's kind of not how our game is played. People practice with a gun, they get good at that gun, that's like largely all they play. So there's just understanding where this game fits. I love the content creation system. I think it is, again, second to none out there. And I think knowing what the game could be, or envisioning what the game could be based on the bones that are there, is just that's what we wanted to come in and try to fix. I will admit there was a lot that I didn't know. So I think my eyes were bigger than my stomach, and we bought into this and then realized really quickly, like, oh my God, it is a complex beast. It's just a sprawling code base. It was so much more involved in trying to get where I wanted to go. So that's why we've kind of had, I think, some of these efforts that went a certain direction, and then we're like, oh, okay, lessons learned. Let's pull that back, and then try to do it differently. And so this is our third attempt. So, but anyway, I hope I answered the question. I like, just, there's so many things I like about it. I like the economics, where people can really truly interact with other people, both on the marketplace and in game, and then just some of the game mechanics, which are still very, very unique. It's subtle. Maybe Frost can speak to this, but like, I saw in chat, GTA, right, and other games, but like APB's not GTA, APB's not Call of Duty, APB's not. Like, it is a very unique game in my mind.
People people like to look at APB, see third-person shooter, and the first thing that comes to mind is GTA.
Well, gangs, right?
So
Or
yeah,
urban style setting. So
I
yeah, I
mean,
get it. And driving, right? Open world, I get that. But that's about
I'm
where the analogy ends.
I'm sure there could be more done more to flesh out these sort of aspects and actually give APB more of an urban feel. But I mean that is just something you can do through contact releases, new cars, and
Yep.
obviously the kind of the sky's the limit with the customization as well. Like
We
if
we
people want to have like a very urban looking car,
mhm.
graffiti all over,
We
they
definitely
can
made some
totally do that.
mistakes, I would say, early on where it took us a little bit to kind of figure out kind of, like I felt the reasons why we got it, and there's reasons why I like it, but even the team internally, the live ops team had to figure out like kind of what kind of is APB and what isn't APB. The fantasy of running around and doing something in APB versus like making something that absolutely looks like not real. And so we had to kind of figure that out again and kind of tweak that. So it took us a little bit to kind of dial in, I think, what works well from clothing perspective was what I was talking about. What works well in the APB kind of universe there. Um, there's a does APB regret ever taking over APB? Sorry, does Little Orbit regret taking over APB? The game must be at a loss. Yeah, it's definitely cost us money. I don't regret taking it over. I think as a company, we knew this was going to be tough, and it'll be quite as tough, but still just as committed to it today as we were when we took it over. And frankly, I feel like we've done a bunch of the hard learning. We've got more learning ahead of us. I don't want to imply that we're now, experts on the game, but I do think it takes a couple of years to really get your feet under you when you're dealing with something like this game. It just takes a while to really kind of figure it out and sort of, coming in the door, I knew we were gonna break some eggs. I think I said that on one of the streams. We weren't gonna be perfect, but at least we're gonna try some things and see what worked and what didn't. We tried a lot of things that didn't
Thing
work, but yeah.
Yeah, I think one of those things is like you can obviously make mistakes and you will continue to make mistakes. Like that is very normal in running a game. But I think what matters the most is how you handle it. Obviously, there's been, for example, the improved rifling change. I was personally very against that, and I was like super happy to see that it was eventually reverted.
Yeah.
And I think those are just signs of goodwill. There's like
I
you
think
tried something, not everyone liked it. I still think the version of improved rifling we had would do well as a separate mod,
yeah.
not as a rework to improve rifling, but like
Don't break
as an
yeah.
actual
Yeah.
extra mod. That could make a cool dynamic. On some weapons, improved rifling is better for the extra range, but not without the reduction in rate of
hmm
fire.
hmm
On some other weapons where rate of fire is not as important,
Yep.
the extra range benefits more. I think that is something you could totally add to the game. But
I,
I think showing goodwill and actually listening, it means so much more in retrospect when you made a mistake.
yeah, I think
Because making a mistake, it's just gonna happen.
yeah.
Right?
We unfortunately early on, and I say early, but I mean like two, 3 years in, um, oftentimes we were at the mercy of having to trust other people, either
Mhm.
people that had come along with, certainly our early designer who came along from Reloaded, and he was just, I looking back, I disagree with the design philosophy a little bit there, but didn't know any better, right? And sort of same thing with Riot, or same thing, you sort of trust what you're given, or you have to, you don't have any other frame of reference, so you just sort of jump off that cliff hoping these other people are right. So I would say that's maybe one of the bigger differences in that a lot of the new go forward pieces are being way more directly managed by me, where we're sort of saying like, oh, don't go down that rabbit hole, don't go down that, like, we know better, let's just laser focus on some pieces here so we can make some actual progress.
Yeah.
And so hopefully that's a winning strategy. We'll see. But what else we have here? So
I have one more question that we
yeah,
actually missed in the open letter,
fire away.
which is let me check. What are the current plans to improve communication between Little Orbit and the player base who does not visit the forum regularly? Previously, the broadcast system was used to inform players of patch note, but this system has not been utilized in a really long time.
I think it got
Is that
broke.
something you're considering
Yeah,
bringing
and
back
we should
potentially?
absolutely. I think again, not understanding the ecosystem, that's on us. And I think a broadcast system got broke. Bringing that back, fixing it, but also understanding that like there's a huge amount of people on Steam that we don't really communicate well with. There's a huge amount of people on console that we don't really communicate well with. Like, I think it's easy uh, to get lazy and feel like, oh, hey, we're communicating on the forum, which is this very small, perhaps vocal minority of players. And
Yeah.
I absolutely encourage Emily, if we can get, let's see if I can find a link. Encourage people to jump on the Discord. We are, we're over there. I'm unfortunately have not been as active as I would like to be. So I'll just, I'll say that up front. But that is, I think, the best place for people to get announcements and things like that. We're working on being able to tie Steam in a little better and some of these other pieces so that we can communicate better. But honestly, doing more of these,
Yeah.
if I had infinite time and sort of infinite resources, I think doing a dev blog, which is more encompassing than just the update, doing a monthly AMA with the community, just to even doing it on Discord more regularly. It's certainly something we've talked about internally, is just jumping on and
Yeah.
having a day of the month where we spin up the Discord for an hour or two and I talk to players. I like talking to the community. It's you guys are often very sharp and very witty, and you make me laugh all the time. And so, and it sounds weird. I know this, community does have a reputation for being toxic, but I have met many players, and I find them to be at their heart pretty kind people, and they've been very patient with us and the mistakes, and so for that I'm grateful. So I definitely have not been interacting on the forums just because of time, and I've not been as active on Discord, but I definitely want to try to improve that. And so, hopefully that addresses your topic there, Frosi. But
Mhm.
there I think we need to do a better job of aggregating the community, and we've kind of been over here on the forums, and we've over, like we could be doing a way better job, especially with Steam. We often just they get left in the cold a little bit, even for this like lesson learned, right? We had posted on the forums, but creating a news alert that would help people see that, just like that's just us not knowing any better, and or missing it, and we'll get better at that.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right, a couple more, and then we'll start winding down. I'm going to skip a couple of these because they're cool questions. I don't want to. There's a little bit about clans and hideouts and other things, but I think they're just a little further out there. There's a question about APB Vendetta, um, which I've spoken to in the past. I'm not going to get into APB Retribution or Vendetta. We own them. They're there. We have them, but they're just not part of our like. This is the game we're focused on for you guys. So. By the way, with clans, it came up a couple times. I think that we could absolutely be doing something better there, right? It's in the zeitgeist in terms of other features and ways we can make that system better. It's just not immediately on the roadmap. Um, so one person asked about character names, and it's not really a server merge per se. We started to go down that road, and that was a nightmare. What the server merge meant was just putting more load on antiquated hardware, on antiquated software, and we realized that wasn't going to be possible. We were already at the time pushing some of the caps. So it's cross district is really what we're looking at. In fact, maybe more worlds pockets, but they all kind of play together. And for all intents and purposes, it's you're kind of not limited with who you play. That's the answer to the kind of the world merge question, was to kind of go more towards the cross district stuff. And so when that happens, typically it's just like other games that already do this, where you kind of have your name on your server, and if there's no one else in the district that has your name, that's your name. If there's someone else who ends up in your district due to crossplay, then there's some numbers that show up, and you're able to distinguish one versus another. But generally speaking, you don't have to worry about that, and you kind of show up as your name. So that's how we plan on solving that. Again, we're not reinventing the wheel. There's other games that have done that pretty well. Um,
Actually, a follow-up question to that.
sure.
Wouldn't it be just easier, since there's two servers right now, wouldn't it be easier to just, instead of a couple numbers, just put in hashtag NA or hashtag EU
Yeah.
sort of thing?
Yeah,
I think
I
I think
think
numbers.
that was also one of the ideas was like what server are you coming from so
Yeah,
that we or world, right? So you'd always be identified uniquely on that world. But I'd have to go back and look at mine. It may have been that we actually got that comment back then when we were talking about it with SBCT, and
yeah.
it's in the design, and I just haven't um,
I think
refreshed my memory on it.
people just care a lot about their names. So if you were to just, if there was a duplicate name, if they were to just add numbers to it, I
Hmm.
think that wouldn't be a pretty solution for those
Sure,
people that care about those names.
sure, fair.
I think one of the suggestions as well was maybe just make it so when you interact with that player that hashtag NA, hashtag EU is there, or
Yeah,
when you hover over their name in the scoreboard, not something they actively see, but something oh, I know this player,
yeah,
and is it the one from EU? Is it from the one from the NA? Sort of
yeah.
like have players be able to figure that out instead of, you know, permanently put a tag on them.
Yep. No, absolutely. I think that's one of the things we wanted to do at the time is also look at the Sony guidelines for when you're interacting in crossplay. So Sony does have guidelines when you're crossplaying with uh, Xbox, and so
Mhm.
factoring that in because that's crossplay or cross district is kind of an implementation that also solves some of that. But why do it twice, right? If we could be compliant over there and we could be compliant with kind of what we want to do, then
Yeah,
we want to do both. Um,
that makes
I
sense.
do. By the way, I saw this comment come up. You know, why are people kind of commenting? I'm not. I am glancing at the chat, but I have help. I have my moderators also on another screen picking out questions and feeding them to me. So I am trying to address some of the questions that do come up. So as long as the mods kind of see it, then we'll try to get to it. I know there's an effort that it's in the near future. It's something we've kind of been on and off again about going back through. We did a pretty big revamp of Armis and of the website when we first took over. It took a little bit, but you know we kind of did an overhaul there. It's due for another one, frankly, and mostly not just the site itself or kind of how things are presented, but to Frosty's point about just standardizing how things are bought and sort of consumed there. We took a step back from Armis Online actually and started focusing on the Joker store, putting things in game, and you'll see that continue as well. I think having to get out of game and go to a website is, you know, kind of 2010. So
Very much.
the more we can kind of keep that stuff, you know, in game, give you guys the ability to get stuff and do it that way. I think we just, you know, we were going down that road. I think we've refreshed the Joker store maybe twice, and not in a while, but during its development, and it's way overdue for being, you know, added to and overhauled. So um, that's coming. Um, This is from Enio. This is not sure if you'll see this message map, but I appreciate the fact that you are still putting messages out there, still working on the game. Um, you're welcome. It's one that the mods pulled out for me to see there. Um, we This one just sort of came on the screen, the old login screen. We've talked about that. I dig the old login screen. I think it's not high on the list. I think, you know, I'd like to do something there. To be clear, the old login screen is in a different technology, so there's a reason why they moved it and changed it, as they had changed how the technology behind it works. But there's no way to just turn the old one back on. Unfortunately, we looked at it, but we we'd love to do something kind of maybe, you know, closer to that. We just have to build it from scratch. It's not something we can revive. Um,
Mm.
and then I've answered some of this, so I know people are maybe joining late. I'm going to wrap this up in, let's just say, the next 15 minutes. We'll kind of wind down here. I think we've gotten through a huge chunk of the question, so apologies if I missed your question. But the question here, you know, is there ever going to be new ranks or new maps? Um, yes, you know, we're going to be trying to extend. We have two new contacts, so that will you can continue on from there. I think there's a big design pass that we need to do across the board with relation to where the maps fit in and that sort of thing. Frankly, I'd like to just make the maps better. And yes, Waterfront, I'm looking at you. I think there's an effort of just kind of going through and kind of tweaking that's also something I think that would be something we probably should do at the risk of, I'm not saying we're not going to focus on new maps because we do have some ideas there, but just going in maybe every 6 months to a year and touching a map, right, moving some things around, because I think not drastically altering it, but I think that making some changes to a map here and there, as long as you're not doing it too often, can be fun. Changes up the gameplay a little bit. I know that there's some stuff we have to do with collisions and exploits, and that was in the open letter in terms of fixing some things where people are abusing that we have to do that. Now that what has prevented that in the past is we were always moving to this other engine that had a whole different copy of everything. So fixing things in 120 was going to get thrown away when we went to the new one. So now that we're not doing that. We're staying with the actual content that's in 120. We've upgraded it to 130, but it's the exact same content. I think we can do that. I think we can go through and fix up things that are maybe not as great.
Especially on 3.5, I remember there were so many spots where certain objects had the wrong collisions, or
Yep.
you just couldn't shoot through them. It was a nightmare, and it actually affected gameplay
Yeah.
really, really poorly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That was going to be
so
very problematic. I think it was like
you
keep with a fine tooth comb going through that.
yeah,
That's not going to be the
you
case
dodged
this
the
time.
bullet.
It's not going to be the case this time. We're just going right with the 120 geometry, collisions, physics, all of that. So shooting through things, um, there were. I can only imagine the heartache and problems they went through to try to get what is on console, but not. It turned out not a great place to start for us. So, um, um, let's see. So Emily, do we have any other final questions? You want to kind of post anything, and then. Um, Definitely NEO that I just spoke to that where they are there are definitely some areas and objectives that are hard to get to, and so we with this direction we can now go back in, fix that up, and start to deal with those. Um, we are, I think, again, this is not controversial. We're launching the Christmas event tomorrow, so I hope people will enjoy getting back in. I think we're turning on a fan favorite map that people enjoy, so all of that should be pretty fun. So hopefully you guys will have fun there. It was a little slower to get it online this year. Bear with us again. We're just kind of working through keeping the game online, and hopefully that'll be fun. But Christmas launches tomorrow. So let's see. Is any exclusive items, paid items, or event items soon after the update? I think generally I'm less focused in the immediate kind of future following the upgrade. I'm less focused on event items and the season passy kind of stuff. I'm more focused on just the contacts, filling back in the contacts, getting some new contacts in that people can play. I know that right now, the nature of having an older audience is everybody's played through all the content. They're all sitting right at the cap, and so I think there's some benefit in putting two new contacts in that people can get in and have some fun with. I don't think they're going to be tier 4. I think they're going to be lower. Yeah,
You said there were like, I think 15 levels,
yeah,
I believe.
yeah.
Which I mean, it's a good amount. It also evens out the ranked number again, because
Puts it
for many years there's been a 5 at the end.
right. Puts us
So
back on a 0.
yeah, it
So
puts you
yeah,
back on a 0.
yeah. Um, so season passy stuff. I saw that come up. It's a mixed bag. I feel like it is a constant grind to put content together for a season pass. It's just you've just got to like constantly feed the beast there. Um, we we have some ideas there, so we're working through it. But I think before we commit to anything, we need to have the content plan straight. Some of it factored into what we do with premium, and kind of trying to make the premium system work a little bit differently. We've left premium, turned on for everybody, partly because of COVID. That's where we started in the pandemic and everything, but also just because, again, I didn't want people to feel like we were taking advantage of them or grifting them. Any money spent in the game has absolutely gone into the development of the game. So rest assured, I am very grateful for the people who are spending money in the game and supporting us. That is what has kept this alive. I think I kind of want to be able to go in and tweak the premium product a little bit, make it a bit more valuable, before we kind of turn off the free premium. So yeah, I think everybody's used to free premium now. So I think I would tend to agree that I think premium probably should not be a thing in its current iteration. I think there are some other ideas we had about a new style of premium, but certainly gating creativity based on money feels like a feel bad kind of thing. I'm not sure I like that. So I noticed a couple people talking about the battle pass. So I wanted to make sure we at least discuss that and kind of talk. It's further down the stream there. But I would agree. I think the customization slots and things are probably those should just be part of the game. I know they kind of did that originally with the idea back in 2010. They did it with the idea that having all that data would cost money, and that they would need the premium to pay for the servers, right? That they're having all that extra slot data and stuff. They were super hyper conservative about how many things they let you have on an account and how much they let you put on a character and that sort of thing, because it costs money to store and it costs money to operate. But I think we're past that now, at least in this day and age. It's not as costly.
There's one more question that was also brought up in the chat. That was also in the letter, but I kind of wrote it off as something that isn't necessarily like a talking point right now, but could be closer to 64-bit. But are we going to see actions taken against the use of config edits that are currently prohibited? Not necessarily punishing players, but rather blocking the edits from working or re-evaluating which edits are allowed. Because, for example, right now, muzzle flash is an issue. On some guns, it's extremely big,
Right.
and there is a
Yep.
config edit to remove it, but that config edit edits a UPK file,
Yep.
and
Yep.
obviously that is not allowed. And then there's other edits that just completely remove particle effects, and you can actually actively see players stream and play with those
Well, it's
edits.
off. Yeah. Um, you're asking a great question. My take has been that problem goes away with cooked data. A
Mhm.
lot of the things you can do now in the game you won't be able to do. We've sort of taken a pretty, I don't want to say light touch on that. If we get notified and there's proof and we see it and it's on stream, then we take action against it, or we try to. Um, but it hasn't been a super big priority because we just know that, like, it's not going to be a thing in the future. Once you can, like the way that they fixed the muzzle flash or fix the muzzle flash, it just won't be possible with cook data. So I think you're raising a point. It's an absolutely valid point. It's unfair to turn that stuff off and kind of make the game easier to play. It's something that, admittedly, we have not done the best job policing because we just don't have a lot of people, but we do try to take action when it's clear that the person is bending the rules. And part of it is also we try to be clear about what's allowed and what's not, right? And then try to give people warnings, and it's always a shame. I've gone on record saying I hate banning people. It's not, I feel like we've kind of failed if we had to ban people, because it's a feel bad time all the way around. And inevitably, you just end up having this huge argument about what the person thought they were doing, what they knew they were doing wrong, and so it's something that we just we every company, I'm sure, rides the line on. You just want to make sure you've communicated enough. You want to make sure that they knew they were doing something wrong. You want to make sure that you've given them a warning potentially or two. Certainly, BattlEye doesn't give there's no cheat warning. If you get detected, then you get banned. So. But going forward, we're going to have to spend some time recreating the community rules, making sure they're clear and easy to find, and then defining, hey, this is what's allowed, this is not allowed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, possibly I see inventory capacity increase that's certainly something that's come up. I think I probably will lump that into the back end rewrite that needs to happen just database wise. I don't think you guys realize again how old it is and how much it just chugs along with a little bit of scotch tape and bubblegum. So I would absolutely want to upgrade the database before we start making too many changes there. Um, let's see. So, all right, I'll make this the last question again. If I didn't get to your questions, I apologize. We'll try to do this more often. I meant that, and I want to get through these hurdles. I take it back. Two questions. One that I should have answered already, and then I'll do um, this last one. So it says, uh, will there be an option to design skins for items rather than designing the items themselves? Would be open up a possibility of designing Armis items as well. This has come up a lot. I did talk a lot about the content tools. We are open to the idea of having players design weapon skins or having players. There's a whole host of things that are out there, um, and being able to you can already trade symbols, so you can trade the symbols, but I think the idea here would be expanding the content creation tools and things like there's a lot of absolute things we want to do. Weapon skins in the game, for the people that don't know, are a mess. Um, that's a whole system that needs to be reworked based on how stuff applies and that sort of thing. So we're going to have to take some time and deconstruct that. So anyway, I just want to throw that out there. I saw it. I think it's an important, relevant point. That'll be the last question from you guys. The other question I saw that we'll close on is the ETA. So when are we going to see the 1.30 version of the game coming out? And so right now, and again, I don't want to commit to hard dates. The biggest thing is that we want to get SBCT in testing. In order to do that, we need to finish up the shipping build. So we want, right now we have some stuff up and running. We're not in a shipping build, so all the footage you saw there was capped, and you saw hitches, and you saw frame rate issues there. So we want to get the main granddaddy is financial. That's where we take all of our benchmarks. That's the most complex district. So we have to get that up and running. Right now, financial's not up and running yet in game. We need to get the shipping build finished, and then we need to get SBCT in with enough players. So getting matches, which is where we saw, a lot of the slowdown. We did a little bit of testing last time in Asylum, and we may still do that. We may still follow that, so we may do Asylum. I just found that Asylum tended to run better than Financial. Financial is where we really hit the brick wall. I think all things considered, we might have gone with the performance if Asylum was as bad as it got, and it just Financial was terrible. So we're focusing a little more on Financial. And so my hope is to get SBCT in to do all of that and get SBCT in no later than February. I think we've got some holidays coming up. We've got some of that work happening in January, and if we can do that sooner than January, great. Or sorry, inside of January, great. But February is kind of my target for having that all cleaned up and starting official testing with SBCT. And then from there, we want to get this right. So it's very hard for me to predict when you guys will get it. That could go extremely well. A lot of stuff does just sort of work. And so 1.30, which is what I refer to, is the 64-bit version that we're going to be rolling out. But I want SVCT to get in there and really kick the tires, break a bunch of stuff, and let us fix that before we start rolling it out. But having said that, I also right now the player base is kind of low, so you guys are going to be guinea pigs. There will come a time when I just say we're throwing it out there, and because it is a direct port of 120, we can literally just turn it on. It can patch and turn it on, and you guys will download it, and that'll be live. So there's less hurdles to do that because all the hosting backend is all compatible. We don't have to spin up a new environment. So hopefully that addresses a little bit of the immediate stuff, just the steps we want to run to. Again, that's coming up pretty quickly, and I'll try to do maybe one more of these once SBCT has gotten in and we can show some video. We did that last time. It was a lot of fun,
Yeah.
kind of showing off what the guys were seeing. I think at some point we'll lift the NDA and they can maybe get online and stream, where you can stream some matches with SBCT. Part of me is also like, it just doesn't look much different, right? It's what will be nice is the benchmarks. I think there are potentially some gains. We did carry over some stuff that will hopefully be a bit of a gain. And then I know a lot of people are running RTX cards, so that is a big deal. I don't know. The big question for me is if we're going to try to get cooked data in this first launch, or whether we're just going to cut over, get it up and running, and then go for cooked data pretty quickly. But we need to get easy anti-cheat in the first launch. So that's it's I'm gonna say I saw what is the timeline, right? Like days, months, years, months. I'm gonna say we're hoping to get SBCT in February, possibly sooner if things go well. We certainly got into the editor and we were in game a lot faster than I thought. We're giving ourselves a little bit of cushion, and then depending on how that goes, maybe April, I think, would be where a target for trying to get just turn on the player base and get them in there. So, all right, guys, I want to thank Frosi for all the hard work on the open letter. I want to thank you guys for tuning in and listening to me ramble on for nearly 2 hours. Hopefully, I answered some questions, and we'll do more of these, hopefully. I will acknowledge, I had intended to write up a lot of this in the forum and actually put that on the forum, and I didn't have time, and I thought a lot of these were a little nuanced, so I figured it better to do it on the stream. So apologies, I did want to get some concrete answers. If you guys find answers that are relevant that came from the stream, you're certainly welcome to post them. The moderators will try to go up and to make sure that's accurate. But thank you, everybody. Have a happy holiday, happy New Year, and we'll be back with more updates soon. All right.